Well, look at there. It's been so long. We haven't done a show in quite a while, but we are finally back coming to you, me via vacation spot. But of course, guys are back to you, bringing in another episode of Woo Fantasy right here on rotoballer.com, brought to you as always by rotoballer.com. And of course, have to get to right off the top of the show here, and of course, mention win big in 2021 with rotoballer.com's NFL Premium Pass. Are you ready to dominate your season-long in DFS leagues? Rotoballer's NFL Premium Pass and Draft Kit includes rankings, projections, and draft kit cheat sheets for all formats. Get exclusive draft articles, DFS tools, lineup optimizers, and premium Slack chats from all the guys at rotoballer.com. Join in on the winning and take 50% off any premium pass. Use promo code WOO Fantasy for another 10% discount. Just visit rotoballer.com/radio. Sign up today and start rotoballing like a boss. Getting that out of the way, and of course, joined as always by the co-host, Mr. Nick Heffley. How are we doing there, sir? It's been a minute.
Good, man. I don't know if you noticed the digs here, but this is a new place. The wife and I bought and the little one bought a new house about a month ago. We're still moving boxes around. That is half the reason I'm sure that we have not done a podcast here. Is I haven't had a chance to, man. It's been busy, but we moved in the perfect time because now it's settled. Fishbowl happens next week. Perfect time.
Of course, as you mentioned, Scott Fish Bowl is getting ready to kick off here in just a number of days. I myself am included in the Fish Bowl yet again. Co-host there, Real FF Goat, is back in the Fish Bowl yet again this year, second year in a row. And lo and behold, we had friend of the program, Mr. Charisma, Justin Farley, with his first entry into the Scott Fish Bowl this year. So pretty much same scoring format as last year. If you don't know anything about the Scott Fish Bowl or anything, yeah, it's a very different type of scoring format. I think of what he mentioned, he was on a show the other day, and I think he said that RotoViz actually mentioned that it's like the most optimal scoring format that they've ever reviewed and done for their website. So that's something new there, but it's of course it's Nick Heffley's year. Kickers included in the Scott Fish Bowl this year.
Although I'm gonna have to admit I'm a little sad we don't have a starting kicker position, but you know what? At least I get to draft them, right?
That's true. Kickers are included, but only as the flex. So it's definitely it really changes your thought process when it comes to the kickers as far as whether how you draft them, when you might put them or plug them into your lineups. They could have big weeks, or they could have low scoring weeks and really kind of set you back in your scoring. So it's definitely something to keep in mind if you do happen to look at that potential with kickers in flex this year. So right off the bat, we'll talk. We'll kind of get into it a little bit, but yeah, I'm drafting from the 4th spot in my particular division, in the Nirvana division. Nick, you're in the Elton John division, going from the 9 spot, correct? We're going to be looking at
better than I ever did, man.
It's way to throw that in there. That's good. That's a good pull. Different strategies, I believe, that we're going to be employing from either side of the draft board here. Of course, it's 3rd round reversal, so that's the kicker, the new caveat that he's throwing in there this year as well. So did that factor into your decision in selecting your draft spot? I would assume that it did.
I'm going to try to decide in round 1 between Harrison Butker and Younghoe Koo.
If you're going to go kicker, you might as well go hot and heavy.
I may buck the trend and go back to back.
That would be a definite that'd be a strategic output
What was it,
that I've
Matt
not
Barkley
seen.
that got taken second overall last year? Wasn't it right in that one league? I mean, everybody
Oh,
knew it. I bet everybody would be talking about me. Let's put it like that, right?
right? Yeah. No. So it's definitely it does throw a lot of wrinkles in there, like we mentioned with the kickers involved in that. But it's the tight end premium. We've mentioned that before last year heading into the podcast and heading into the drafts and everything. So you have the tight end premium. You get the 1.5 points per reception for your tight ends. You get all the extra bonuses for the first downs. Quarterback, with it being the super flex, is what really is that's going to get everyone hot and bothered. That's going to get things kind of rolling a little bit different with the strategy in these drafts because everyone's going to go after these quarterbacks hot and heavy. But quarterback it can definitely be a death knell for your weekly scoring roster. We did notice that last year, with the change in the scoring format, sacks taken, negative points for incompletions, whether it be the turnovers, of course, those are negatives to you as well. It definitely skews to have the better quarterbacks on your roster. So everyone really wants to kind of get those quarterbacks taken early and often, especially with it being the super flex. But does this change your thought process and how you view these quarterbacks than how you would in a particular, like a regular standard half-point PPR draft?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely going to skew a little bit heavier toward the quarterback with the format, but personally, I'm not going to go quarterback any crazier than what I did last year. I think I had 2 in the first 6 or 7 rounds or so. So, I mean, to me, that leads me to think there's going to be value there at running back and wide receiver a little bit later.
Yeah, that's one thing I have noticed going through mock drafts and things that I've seen. A lot of, especially the 4th draft pick discussion group that I'm on Twitter with, they're doing a lot of mock drafts. So I'm getting a lot of valued information from those guys. You're seeing a lot. It's quarterbacks off the board very, very fast and furious from what I've seen through a lot of their mock drafts. So it can definitely skew you to the direction to take those quarterbacks earlier than normal, or you can veer right when everyone's going left and really kind of hit on a lot of these superstars at the other skill positions and kind of take your chances with those quarterbacks that are a little bit further down the board. Which path do you feel is more competent for your drafting style, would you say?
I mean, at least I'm planning on going, kind of more of a best player available. I mean, I think it's one of those things to where, I don't want to reach for a Justin Herbert in round 2 to where I don't think he's going to be, a second round guy even in a super flex format. So I'd much rather get a top flight, running back, wide receiver, tight end than I'm going to do for reaching for somebody. So this is definitely that format. I think there's going to be a lot of value had out there with a lot of people reaching, trying to hit that home run and trying to reach a little bit for picks. So,
yeah, I think that's you're going to see a lot of different drafting strategies and styles out there during this draft because, I've mentioned it before. You've got a lot of first timers involved in this draft this year, more so than there's ever been in the Scott Fish Bowl. So you're probably going to see a lot of, I guess, furious excitement to get some players from some of these new guys that are in these drafts this year. So they could be wild cards for some of us that are experienced drafters in the Fish Bowl, or it could really kind of throw things completely out of whack. So it's something to definitely kind of keep in mind as these drafts get started up here as of Monday. So of course, with the Scott Fish Bowl, if you're involved in the league, definitely go to fantasycares.net and don't forget to donate to the cause. That is why we're doing the Scott Fish Bowl. It is for charity, so definitely go throw some bones their way. Let's help get that up there. But not to mention, of course, too, the potathon that's going to be kicked off and starting on Monday. We will be involved in that. We're going to be doing Woo Fantasy involved
Bright and
in the
early.
Podathon bright and early. They're bringing us in as the closers, so to speak. We're going to be on Tuesday morning, pulling the 5 a.m. Central spot. We're going 5 to 5:30 a.m. Central. That will be 6
good thing I'm
to
Eastern
6:30 on Eastern time for Mr. Heffley there. So if you're up early, definitely hop on, get on Twitter, check us out on the YouTube channel. They will be highlighting those over the course of that 24-hour period. It's normally been a 1-hour allotment over the course of the last several years for the Podathon, but he's got so many people that are wanting to be involved doing this that he's limiting it down to 30-minute slots, and we got in this year, so I'm really looking forward to that. Our first time being involved in the Podathon, of course, fantasycares.net. So definitely go over there, throw some money their way. Even if you're not in the Scott Fish Bowl, send in some donations. It's for a great cause, toys for children for Christmas time. So definitely shoot some money that way. So transitioning from the Fish Bowl, we'll kind of get into a little bit more regular talk. I do want to touch base on it some. We won't spend a lot of time on it. But we missed out on a little bit of the news cycle over the course of the last few weeks. But of course, the biggest thing that's kind of come down the pike over the last few weeks, the Julio Jones trade to the Tennessee Titans.
I thought you were going to talk Tim Tebow.
Don't get me started. I will get off on a tangent on that quickly. No, Julio Jones traded to the Tennessee Titans. I put out a lot of things on Twitter the day of the trade and kind of my thoughts and player evaluations moving forward. And I've kind of been moving some of my rankings around over the course of the last few weeks based on that. So what's your overall gut reaction to this move ups for players and move down for players? Who are you eyeballing after this move was made?
Julio's a guy I think stays the exact same. I don't think anything really happens to Julio. His valuation is the exact same as what it was beforehand. I think what you really do is you trade A.J. Brown's perceived value without Julio, and you trade that with Calvin Ridley. So to me, Ridley goes up into the top 5 at the wide receiver position. A.J. Brown slots down a little bit. Again, you and I have talked about this whenever the Julio signing happened. There's a lot of targets to go around. Now, granted, the Titans don't throw the ball a ton, but when they do, they typically last year targeted Corey Davis or A.J. Brown, and they really didn't have a lot of receptions outside of that. Adam Humphries is gone over there now too, so I mean, there's not a ton of balls, but those two guys are going to get the majority of the work. So A.J. Brown, I don't think goes crazy down. I tell you whose value. I had him ranked high anyway. Kyle Pitts' value is pretty high. The only way it could get any higher
through the roof.
Something happened. Only way it could get higher is if something happened to Calvin Ridley at this point, right?
Yeah. I think you're seeing the bubble on Kyle Pitts. He's almost to the point to where it's about to burst as far as his ADP currently. I mean, you're seeing him steadily going in that 4th round. I mean, the hype is, I won't say gotten out of control. I think it's probably around to where it should be currently. But like what you said, I think in my rankings, I flip-flopped them once the trade was made. I had A.J. Brown above Calvin Ridley at 3 in my ranking. Actually, I had him at one point as my wide receiver 1 up until the trade was made. Now I've flip-flopped them. I've got Calvin Ridley at 3 and A.J. Brown at 4 in my newest rankings that I've got at Fantasy Pros. So I see a little bit of a dip, just like what you mentioned. But Calvin Ridley, sky's the limit for this guy. I mean, you saw last year he was a PPR monster for most of the season, was getting a lot of receptions over the course of the year, just couldn't get in the end zone enough. But I think we've said that over the course of the last few years with Julio Jones as well. So, but now you do have Julio going to Tennessee, and like what you mentioned, there's targets to be had there. So we have some vacated targets there. But they've also ranked 31st in pass attempts each of the last 2 years. So, I mean, are there going to be enough pass targets to go around for the Titans to support 2 top, let's say, 20 wide receivers in fantasy production?
I think so. Along with that, Julio is not necessarily a guy that I want to take. Now that may be where he's ranked, but he's not a guy that I don't think I would necessarily be targeting unless he started to fall a little bit. So,
yeah,
I would, my ranking right now, I would probably have him late teens or so right now. And that's where I would have him coming in anyway. I think even if he had stayed in Atlanta, Calvin really easily is above him. So, for me to want to draft him over somebody a little bit lower than him with a little more upside and a little less of an injury risk, he would need to fall down into that mid 20 kind of range for me to really go after him on him. That's where I would be more comfortable drafting that.
Does this put Ryan Tannehill as a QB1 for you right now after the trade?
I mean, I don't really think it changes his value all that much from where it was. I think it changes Matt Ryan's value a little bit.
Yeah. I mentioned that ad nauseum the day of the trade. I mean, we saw over the course of the last 2 years, Matt Ryan, without Julio on the field, is a completely different quarterback. Now, will Kyle Pitts kind of help to alleviate that some? Remains to be seen how that rapport is between those two. So,
yeah, I'm
a little bit scared there.
Look at Ryan's numbers without Julio last year. Wasn't great. He was having a lot of one touchdown efforts last year. Now saying that means he's going to come at a little bit of a value in an early draft, like a Scott Fishbowl draft. He's going to have a little bit of value there. But I mean, Tannehill, I think, is that fringe QB1. He's got some value in there, especially a league like the Scott Fishbowl. He's pretty productive. He's not going to throw a ton of incompletions on there. So I mean, he's just a steady Eddie. I would love him as my number 2 quarterback in a league like that. That would be pretty amazing.
Only drawback with Matt Ryan, especially in the Fishbowl format, is that sacks taken department. The offensive line has been a little bit of an issue the last couple of years for them. They've gotten to Matt Ryan. He's up there in age. He's not the most elusive guy in the pocket. So he does take some sacks and cause you some negative point totals that way. But maybe now with Arthur Smith there as the head coach, formerly of the Tennessee Titans, maybe they devise a new system to where they're going to get the ball out of his hands a little bit quicker and then into some of these playmakers' hands a lot faster. So that'll be something that'll be definitely something to watch in the early stages of the year. But I agree with you. I think Matt Ryan's probably going to fall down the board a little bit more because of this move, probably in that range of QB 15 to 18. I think is where his draft value is going to wind up falling currently. So in season long, I mean, yeah, he's definitely a guy that you can buy on the back end of a draft. And
it's good number 2.
Good number 2, bye-week field or potential matchup play if you kind of wait a little bit longer for your quarterback and kind of mix and match the two there. So definitely got to look for later on in drafts, but do expect the dips and dives when it comes to Matt Ryan's fantasy production over the course of the year.
The dipsy doos and dunkaroos.
Or the dip, duck, dive, and dodge, the 5 Ds of dodgeball. or that. So, basic premise of the show we wanted to kind of get into tonight was ADP, going through a lot of some of the early round values, some guys that we're going to woo and some guys that we're booing based on their current ADP value. And this is through the Underdog ADP that if you've not been on Underdog yet, that's kind of the brand new best ball format that's out there. It's a nice app. Great drafting format. I've been on there, done a couple of drafts so far. I like the overall feel of that Underdog draft format. So if you're into best balls, if you want to pick up your best ball pace this year and do a little bit more best ball drafting as opposed to season long, check out Underdog. They're definitely a spot to go to. But round 1 ADP, we'll go through. And any guy that's sticking out to you right now in that round 1, that is definitely your woo of the round, a guy that you're going to hit on, whether above or beyond that particular draft point.
I think for me and taking a look at this format, and granted, I know guys coming off ACL injuries are a little questionable. But Saquon Barkley, I mean, got hurt early enough last year to where, him at 5 for me, I think is a woo. I'm thinking he's going to fall even a little bit further than this in some drafts.
Yeah.
And for me, a guy to boo, and granted, it's not a thing that I'm booing him because I don't like him this year. But it's just where he's getting taken. But Cam Akers, I think, is somebody he's going to have some competition there with the Rams. I like him a lot more early round 2 versus going ahead of Austin Eckler, ahead of Nick Chubb, ahead of Aaron Jones, guys who I think they're going to have on my board anyway. I have ranked a little bit higher than I have Cam Akers. So for me, that's the shock. Smaller shock, Ezekiel Elliott. I do not like going 6. I think I would be much more comfortable taking him in the 9, 10, 11 range for me.
Yeah, I agree with you to a degree on Barkley. I think you're going to see him fall down the board a little bit more closer to draft time because you're going to probably see Jonathan Taylor drafted ahead of him in a lot of drafts. You're going to see Ezekiel Elliott drafted ahead of him in a lot of drafts, and those are the 2 players that are directly behind him in current ADP at 6 and 7. For me, if I'm going to woo anybody in that first round, according to ADP currently right now, I'm going to go with Austin Eckler. You mentioned him previously. You've got him a little bit ahead. I do as well. I think him coming off the board as RB10 right now, I mean, gosh, we've seen it over the course of the last 2 years, even kind of with limited play. And if you go by a points per game basis, this guy's putting up top 5 numbers, and you're getting him at the back end of round 1.
That's his problem.
Can't stay healthy. So if he stays on the field, the guy is going to put up absolute balloon numbers this year in that offense. Yeah. I mean, we saw what the Chargers have done in the offseason so far. They've upgraded the offensive line. All indications are is that they're going to be pushing the pedal to the floor with this offense this year. Second year with Justin Herbert, I think Austin Eckler is a definite woo, a great buy at the back end of the first. Now, as far as
what about your boo?
If I'm going to boo a guy in the first round that's getting taken right now, Tyreek Hill at 9, first wide receiver off the board, and I think we're getting some different factors in play here with that, is because you've got Devontae Adams and that uncertainty with Aaron Rodgers in that situation in Green Bay, and that's why you're seeing Tyreek Hill as the first wide receiver taken off the board right now. Because if we had any indication that Aaron Rodgers was going to come and play week 1 for the Packers, Devontae Adams is the no question wide receiver 1 coming off the board, and he's going to go in that draft spot around that 9 area.
Put him at number 1.
Yeah. So
Aaron Rodgers is going to be there. Sorry, he's going to be there.
I'm skeptical. I really am on that. Aaron Rodgers is the type of guy with the character that it would not shock me that he's going to sit at home. And I think that's where the guy's made his money over the course of his career. Does he want to keep showing up to work and be unhappy? No. I mean, the guy could throw a curveball on us at any given notice. I mean, then every indication that he's said over the course of the entire offseason is that, hey guys, I'm not showing up. And right now, if there's a guy in the NFL that I'm going to buy at his word, I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. So for me, I'm going to boo Tyreek Hill as the first wide receiver off the board at that 9 spot in the first round. I'm not comfortable going wide receiver that early anyways in most drafts that I do. So, I'm probably going to be waiting. I'm not going to be a guy that's going to get Tyreek Hill very much in drafts in 2021 based on where he's going ADP-wise right now. So
he will probably not be on any of my teams this year.
Yeah, I don't see it. And plus, he's very volatile on a week in, week out basis. I mean, he'll plug in like we saw last year. That game, I think it was week 13, week 14, somewhere around along those lines where he played Tampa Bay on the road and had 3 touchdowns in the first half. He's going to have those games where he's going to absolutely blow up. But then there's going to be weeks where he's going to go 7 for 75 and not getting in the end zone, or 4 for 87 and just not getting in the end zone. So I think it's a little volatile for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Tyreek Hill's not a great player. He is. You and I are just a little bit more, down with running backs than we are with wide receivers. That early, to me, the depth. I can get a better wide receiver, the second round coming in and have a better running back wide receiver combo than if I went wide receiver running back. So that's my strategy.
Now, before we jump into round 2, I want to get your gauge on this. This is kind of a hotly debated topic in our pick 4 discussion group for the Fish Bowl last night. In a let's say a half-point PPR season-long format, Dalvin Cook or Derrick Henry, which do you prefer for 2021?
If you would tell me that Dalvin Cook is healthy all year just because of the receiving ability, I'm going with Dalvin Cook.
Okay.
And I like Derrick. I like Derrick Henry. I think they're very close, but I think the receiving ability from Dalvin Cook pushes him just that much further higher. It's not much, but in that format and honestly in most formats, it gives him just that little bit extra. Although I think the health of Derrick Henry, if you're at all concerned about Dalvin Cook, your safer pick is Derrick Henry there. You know what you're going to get.
Yeah, because he's currently my RB2 in my ranking. So I do prefer Derrick Henry in half-point PPR. Sure, Dalvin Cook, he's been on the field most of the last 2 years. So that has been something that's going in his favor. He does give you that added bonus with some with reception upside. So I give you that as well. But I'm looking at it from the standpoint of, like you mentioned, health. I feel more confident that I'm going to get 17 games out of Derrick Henry than I am going to get out of Dalvin Cook. Let's remember that. There's 17 games this year. So that's another week of pounding that these guys are going to take.
Also know your league format and make sure you know what week playoffs are going to be starting and ending in and all that good stuff. I still haven't made a decision in some of our leagues, so
we're getting down to the wire on that one. So I do.
These schedules be.
It's a month and a half, 2 months till the season starts. Something like a little over 2. Sure. Let's wait till the drafts are over and see how the rosters look, and then base our schedules on that. But yeah, no, I think, like we mentioned this on the podcast a lot too. I mean, you're splitting hairs when it comes to those two players. It's really kind of what you prefer at that second, third spot in your draft. Are you looking at a little bit more? If it's full point PPR, then yes, I'm probably giving the edge to Dalvin Cook. But in a half point, I think total yardage wise and expectation that there's going to be a rise in targets for Derrick Henry this year. And he's done that over the course of the last 3 years. He's gotten targeted each season a little bit more. So I think what I was doing the math on last night, Dalvin Cook over the last 3 years has averaged about 44 receptions a year. If Derrick Henry can get up into that 25 to 30 range, touchdown potential, total yardage wise, for me is easily going to be the pick there for me. So I just wanted to kind of get your take on that. That was, like I said, a hotly debated topic that we had going through the chat last night. So getting into round 2, this is when you're going to kind of get into some. You've got some red flags on some players here in round 2, early in the draft. What's a guy that you're targeting? What's a guy that you might be just fading in this round?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm looking at this round right here, a guy who I'm going to wind up two guys I'm going to wind up targeting, both from the same team, the Green Bay Packers. Again, I am of the mindset that Aaron Rodgers is not going anywhere. Aaron Jones, the number 11 running back, he keeps getting criminally underrated. So that's definitely going to be a target. Devontae Adams, all the way mid-part with a year he had last year, mid-part of round 2. Again, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going anywhere. That's a steal for me, both of those guys. Who I am absolutely poo-pooing their appearance in this round. It's not because I don't like the guy. it's just the value that you're getting by losing out on other positions, and that's Darren Waller. I like Darren Waller. I liked him last year, but you know that you didn't like Darren Waller. I like Darren Waller. I just think mid part of round 2 is just a little rich for my blood. With so many good running backs and wide receivers. Again, depending on the format. If it's a format like Scott Fishbowl, that's a great spot in mid part of round 2. Regular PPR league, it's a little rich for my blood. So not that I don't like him. He's my number 2 tight end, but the other guy that I think may be a little high for my blood as well is Najee Harris. I think he's number 17 overall, mid part of round 2. I don't think it's a horrible spot. I'd be a little more comfortable getting him at the tail end of round 2, early round 3. Obviously, you're going to have to take a little risk if you want a guy like Najee Harris, but he has a very clear path to carries there in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'll touch on him too, but I would say the guy that I'm looking at here, running back 13 off the board here at pick 16, is Antonio Gibson. I've got him valued as a first rounder right now. I mean, we all know, if you've listened to the podcast over the course of like the last year or so, Antonio Gibson is my guy. I've been all over, and I'm back on the Gibson train again this year. And if I can get him at pick 16 or even before then in a draft, if I can start off my draft with, say, Austin Eckler, Antonio Gibson from the back end of the first round, I'm dancing. I mean, we're looking at 2 guys that should, if they remain healthy, put in big numbers, be top 6 running backs at the position, I would say, on a points per game basis. So I'm all over that. Now, I agree with you with Aaron Jones. I think he's criminally undervalued, and I was one that really undervalued him last year.
He's on round 3 last year. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think even if Aaron, and that's where we're getting into a lot of skepticism with Aaron Jones right now, is if Aaron Rodgers is not there's a lot of people that are fading Aaron Jones. Give me Aaron Jones, even if Aaron Rodgers is not there.
They're going to get the ball all the time.
He's getting the workload at that point. And even if you bring in a guy like Jordan Love at quarterback, or famed Blake Bortles at quarterback, they're going to dump the ball off to Aaron Jones, because guess what? Your guy that caught passes is in Detroit now, and Jamal Williams. So both of those guys were targeted a fair amount of, similar last year, Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. So now you have vacated targets at the running back position. So Aaron Jones is a guy that I would definitely buy there. So I agree with you there. RB11, I think he's criminally undervalued. I think he should be well inside the top 10 at the position before drafts are getting underway. Now, as far as a guy that I'm probably going to fade in this round, as bad as I want to say that, it's probably Joe Mixon at running back 12, coming off the board at 15. We've seen it the last couple of years. There's arguments to be made about potential workload. All the coaching staff is speaking volumes about this guy already in the offseason, that he's in store for a career year. He's going to get the most touches he's ever seen. But let's kind of buck the trend here a little bit on that. I think Joe Mixon's going to be a guy that he's going to be maddeningly inefficient on a week in, a week out basis behind that offensive line for the Cincinnati Bengals. Not a great offensive line, horrible defense. They're going to be behind in games. They just added Jamar Chase in the first round. They're probably going to be looking to throw the ball a little bit more this year. Now, with Giovanni Bernard gone,
I was going to say, where's Gio Bernard at there, B?
There might be some expectations that Mixon's involved a little bit more in the pass game, but I will believe that when I see it, because Mixon's not been a guy that's been a tremendous guy coming out of the backfield and been a PPR asset. So I think we're seeing a little bit of the hype meter coming up a little bit too fast with Joe Mixon right now, and we need him to kind of settle back in more in that kind of tail end of the first round. I think is where his ADP needs to really be leveled out at. So
that would be lovely.
Yeah, and that's where I think he should go. So for me, where he's going right now, a lot of these drafts, his ADP at the front half of round 2, I'm not gonna buy in at Joe Mixon right there. So I did want to touch in on Najee Harris. we see him coming off the board right now at 17 overall, RB 14. You're not going to get him there. Let's just point blank be honest right now. By the time the draft gets
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, this guy.
Yes, he will be a first-round pick come August drafts. I'm just going to point that out because the guy's been built up so much over the course of the last month or so that we're talking, 350 carries for this rookie in a Steeler uniform behind an offensive line that not that great.
And David DeCastro's gone now.
Yeah, I mean, they've either let Andre Villanueva walk or they've cut DeCastro, like you just mentioned. That offensive line is not going to be very good. I don't trust that we're talking about a guy that's coming from Alabama that's used to just seeing an interstate in front of him. And he's going to be looking at guys that are going to be in the backfield on him a lot quicker than normal. So you're going to probably be buying at that, like you mentioned, Clyde Edwards-Helaire draft price from last year in the first round. Tail end of the first round is where I think you're going to see Najee go in a lot of drafts. And I can't buy in on that at that point. But the workload should be there. He's going to be inefficient.
Yeah, I'm just again, if he's falling more toward that back end of round 2, I'm jumping all day. But you got guys at least in this mock. I'd take Clyde Edwards-Helaire over him. I really would. Yeah. I mean, I'd take guys like J.K. Dobbins and DeAndre Swift over him right now. That's me. Again. There's.
I am very much out on DeAndre Swift.
I'm just saying, B.
We'll touch on this real quick too. While you mentioned Darren Waller, during your portion, Darren Waller we're now seeing has overtaken George Kittle in a lot of drafts. Do you agree with that or disagree with that?
Say that again.
We're seeing that Darren Waller has overtaken George Kittle as the tight end 2 in most of these drafts. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree only because of the quarterback situation.
Okay.
If I knew Jimmy Grace was going to be the quarterback all year for San Fran, he would be my number 2 ahead of Darren Waller. I think with the inefficiency, not knowing if and when Trey Lance is going to be starting and who Trey Lance actually likes, I think that's a definite reason to rank him number 3.
Yeah, I'm fully on board with Waller as tight end 2 right now. Kittle, he's going to see a vast majority of the targets in San Francisco, regardless of who the quarterback is. But then you bake in the fact that he potentially is going to miss games with injury. So you're going to be looking at up and down weeks with George Kittle, especially as they start to feed in Trey Lance at quarterback. There's going to be some growing pains there for that quarterback because he's really not been a quarterback that targets the tight end or anywhere over the course of that intermediate area of the field. He's kind of known as more of that deep ball guy. So that would be more of a boost for a Brandon Ayuk, but George Kittle, I think, takes a little bit of a hit there. So I agree. I do like Darren Waller now just on sheer volume alone. I mean, the guy's he's turned into basically Travis Kelce the last couple of years. He's putting up PPR monster numbers at the tight end position where, let's be honest, you get outside of this top 4, 5, 6. I mean, it's a wasteland at that point. I don't want any part of it. And we keep thinking year after year, it's, oh man, there's so much. This dearth of talent. This is just so much talent out there at the tight end position, but that's great. Yeah. They're going to give you 6 points a week. That's awesome.
Yeah. Good luck. I got the number 7 tight end, but the points above replacement for these guys.
And if he doesn't get into the end zone, you're shot at that. I mean, let's be honest about that. Look at last year, Robert Tonyan coming out of nowhere.
Quit taking my words.
The guy gets into the end zone a ton, but outside of that, he's really not giving any work. So let's dive into round 3. Probably kind of go through. We might try to take it through the first 5 rounds in this podcast tonight, but round 3. Same thing. Who's some guys here in this round? What's a guy that you're wooing and a guy that you might be booing at current ADP? Well, we lost we lost Nick on the feed here. So as I'm waiting for Nick to get back into the podcast here, I will go through and we're jumping back in. With this round 3. There he is.
I don't know what happened.
A new house whiffy.
Yeah, my whiffy is at 100%. It must be your
it could be. I was going to say it could be my hotel whiffy here. It could be a problem too. But anyways, third round.
So round 3. So I'm heavily wooing a guy I was wooing 2 years ago. Didn't like him last year where his ADP was going. Back on the train again this year. Michael Thomas. Why?
Yeah.
I'd receive 9. If you know, and even if Taysom Hill was a quarterback, but if you told me that Jameis Winston was going to be the starter in this offense, Michael Thomas number 9, bye all day long.
Yeah.
Two guys who I'm booing. I am not, and even though he had a good year last year when he was healthy, he's never healthy. Chris Carson, boo all day for me. I am not taking him round 3. He's more round 5 guy for me. Again, I don't like the guy. I never have. He's always been a plotter who hadn't caught the ball. Even though he caught the ball last year, that was like his first 2 or 3 touchdowns. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And another boo real quick, and it's not that I don't hate him. I just hate his draft position. CeeDee Lamb, I think, is just way too high. I think Michael Gallup is due for a bounce back. I think CeeDee Lamb's going to have a great year. I just don't. I don't want to get him in the 3rd round, Brandon. In the 3rd round. In the 3rd round. So you're telling me you would draft CeeDee Lamb above Amari Cooper.
Yes.
Above Robert Woods. Above Chris
yes.
Godwin, DJ Moore,
yes,
Jamar Chase. You're drafting him. Okay, all right. I will make you a bet.
It's a simple 1 + 1 = 2 situation. Dak Prescott healthy, bad defense for Dallas. Opportunities are going to be there, and I think he fully takes over the wide receiver 1 role for the Cowboys this year. I think that second year. That's just
a lot of mouths to feed, man.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a lot of mouths to feed, and Blake Jarwin's coming back, going to be healthy this year too. We got Dalton Schultz still there, who was kind of a marvel at the tight end position last year. Caught a lot of balls down the stretch, but that was a byproduct of the horrible defense that we had, and we had to throw the ball. So, yeah, no, I'm going to buy CeeDee Lamb there, but for me, I agree with Michael Thomas. Him being there in that 3rd round is kind of egregiously too low right now.
Quit being on my guys.
But I'm going to veer off onto my own guy, and that's going to be Terry McLaurin. I think Terry McLaurin is going to be in store for a very big year with Ryan Fitzpatrick under center for the Washington football team. I want to call them the Red Hawks. I think that's what I think we need to name them. So I'm going to Washington Red Hawks.
Now, right?
Yeah, so that's what I'm shooting for. But yeah, Terry McLaurin, I think you're looking at a guy, he's coming off the board right now, wide receiver 11, 31 overall. He's in that mix with another guy that I like is Allen Robinson, who is a target monster, just cannot seem to get in the end zone. Maybe that changes with Justin Fields there, but yeah, Terry McLaurin, I think, is in store for a big year and probably looking at top 8 numbers by season end, and you're getting him out, right there on that cusp of wide receiver 1, early wide receiver 2 range, depending on how he falls in certain drafts. So, yeah, I'm wooing Terry McLaurin there. But as far as the boo in this round, I'm going to boo, and you just mentioned it, and we kind of talked about it a second ago. I'm going to boo DeAndre Swift for where he's going currently right now. 29th overall, 16th at running back at the position. I'm not a big fan of what they're going to do. That is going to be an abysmal football team in Detroit this year. Yeah, you've got a head coach that's coming in that he's talking about he wants to chew people's kneecaps off. Offensive line is not going to be great. They bring in Jamal Williams, and I'm one of the biggest Jamal Williams supporters out there. I think Jamal Williams eats into that workload more than we want to let on right now. So for me, DeAndre Swift, I cannot buy him over J.K. Dobbins, and I won't even buy him over Chris Carson, who you just mentioned.
Ooh.
I will take Chris Carson over DeAndre Swift because if you go by season's end, I will guarantee that Chris Carson will outperform DeAndre Swift on a points per game basis in 2021. Book it, mark it down, whatever you need to do.
Okay.
I do not like DeAndre Swift in the situation that they're setting up in Detroit currently. So I'm out on DeAndre Swift there with that round 3 ADP that we're seeing currently. So we'll jump into round 4, get a last couple of rounds out of the way, and then we'll call it a night. Round 4, who are we looking at here that you're that piques your interest and a guy that you'll be fading?
You know, you've mentioned him a couple times in some tweets the last couple of days, but my boy in Chicago, David Montgomery, huge end of the year last year.
Yeah,
going mid part of round 4 for a guy who should have a good amount of the workload there. Gonna be doing some nice things. So that's gonna be my woo. You know, my boo, I think only because of some of the guys who are drafted right behind him. In this, I'm going to boo Julio. You know, I would much rather have Robert Woods, DJ Moore, Jamar Chase, even Adam Thielen. I mean, I would rather have those guys right now as it stands above Julio. And again, I'm poo-pooing on Julio, but it's just the early part of round 4 here. There's some guys going behind him I would much rather have over Julio Jones. I think Tyler Lockett even a little bit smaller than that. Tyler Lockett was so up and down last year. There's just guys going behind him that I would much rather have over them. So Deontay Johnson's down there too. I mean, I would much rather have them over Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned David Montgomery telling Coach Nagy out there in the field, Coach, I'm a great football player. And CBS has me ranked at RB25. Was the best line I've heard all off season. Like I mentioned in my tweet yesterday, David Montgomery, come over, talk to me. I've got you ranked a lot higher than RB25 according to CBS Sports. There's a lot of better value out there if you come check some different spots and different formats, please. So for me, I'm going to woo Miles Sanders in this round. Coming off the board to RB19. I'm going to take him over running backs that we saw in this previous round. I'm taking him over Chris Carson. I'm taking him over Swift. I'm taking him over J.K. Dobbins. I think even though we're going to see there's some plenty of miles to feed there right now, Kenny Gainwell, guy that I'm very big on, is there. Probably going to eat into the receptions out of the backfield for Miles Sanders. Kerryon Johnson is there. Boston Scott's still there. So there's some competition for the workload, but what we saw on Jalen Hurts, who a guy that I'm still on the fence on right now as far as value. We saw once Jalen Hurts took over this offense last year, Miles Sanders' production went way north. So I think that's going to be something to keep in mind as we're looking at Miles Sanders' value heading into some of these drafts. I think he's going to be a guy that you can get in the 3rd round, and he will easily meet 3rd round value. So for me, I'm all over Miles Sanders at RB19, 38th overall. So yeah, if I get him around there, I'm loving life right now. But for me, if I'm going to be booing a guy in this round, I'm probably going to boo Jamar Chase. Wide receiver 20. We're baking in a lot of expectations with the rookie. You know, we're feeding into this who's the next Justin Jefferson type of talk. A lot of people are expecting Jamar Chase to be this guy that's going to come into the league and set things on fire. But we're hearing great reports out of camp from Cincinnati that T. Higgins is looking great. Tyler Boyd's still there too. And that guy's going to get targeted
Don't sleep
a
on Tyler Boyd.
ton. So, yeah, I think, you're going to see Jamar Chase's numbers affect more Tyler Boyd than T. Higgins. But we're not going to see Jamar Chase come in and immediately be like a 120 target guy that's going to put up 1400. Yeah, he's going to have to based on that ADP you're getting him at right now because he's not coming off the board very much behind Justin Jefferson and some of these guys. Let's be honest here. I mean, you've got Robert Woods at wide receiver 17 coming off just a few picks ahead. DJ Moore coming off just a few picks ahead. Both of guys that I think are more settled into their roles than Jamar Chase is going to be. And even Tyler Lockett, one spot behind him at 46, 21st on the board, wide receiver wise. Tyler Lockett on a point per game basis is probably going to outperform Jamar Chase easily in 2021. So I think I'd be more comfortable. I'd be more comfortable with Jamar Chase into the 5th round if that's where I'm looking to draft him, not in the 4th here. So I would boo that pick as well, is how I'm looking at that. But get in here to the 5th round. This will cap it off with tonight. Who are you looking at here in this 5th round that piques your interest?
Yeah, 5th round guy right here. A guy who I wasn't really on last year, but I think just with the way that this team has really come around, and based on him having some inefficient games last year and having some national media attention around that, Deontay Johnson is a guy that I think he's going a little bit lower than where I would project him to go. I think he's got wide receiver 1 upside, going as the number 25 wide receiver. I think he's got a lot of upside there. Consequently, a guy who I'm going to boo. And again, it's just because of the offense that he's in. It's not that I don't like him. I grabbed him some of the last couple of rounds last year in the Fishbowl. But Brandon Ayuk, this high, and especially with a guy like Deebo Samuel there, you got a lot of mouths to feed and very inefficient quarterback situation where you have, a guy like Dak Prescott. You've got a guy who is going to turn around the ball. We don't know what that 49ers offense is going to look like, and that offense has been one of the more run-happy offenses in the league. A guy like Brandon Ayuk in the 5th round, hell no. And I like Brandon Ayuk, but not this early.
Yeah, I agree with you on Deontay Johnson. I think he's getting criminally underrated right now, too. I think that guy's going to get a ton of targets in that offense this year with Pittsburgh. We saw it last year. We don't really know the status of Ben's elbow yet. Last year was, he was coming back from the surgery, so it was a little bit iffy. We don't know if it's fully recovered yet. It might be something that he's going to be plagued with for the rest of his career until he hangs it up. But the guy that was really the biggest beneficiary of that low average depth of target was Deontay Johnson. And I think you're going to see that again this year. So I agree with that. I like Deontay Johnson there. As far as finding guys that I like in this round, gosh, there's really not a lot for me to love here. I would, based on how they've built the offense and the offseason moves made to this point in time, Mike Davis, RB22. I think that's going to be a guy that you're going to see a lot of people target as a kind of a later running back. Here in that 5th round, 6th round range, I think he's going to be a popular option for people because, let's be honest, he's the only game in town right now in Atlanta. And he's a guy that, if you look at the numbers, forced the most missed tackles on receptions out of any other running back in the league last year. And what's Atlanta probably going to have to do this year? Come from behind, dump the ball off, hand it off to Mike Davis.
That's going to be Mike Davis. You know who the backup is there is our friend and bud, Cordarrelle Patterson.
Oh, God. Oh, man, that's Matt Nagy. What can I say about that?
He's turning over on the sideline.
Yeah, that is Cordarrelle Patterson used as a running back was an egregious fault by Matt Nagy. The only reason that they did that in New England is because they had no other bodies to use in that backfield that year with Cordarrelle Patterson. So for me, yeah, I'm gonna be looking at Mike Davis here. Like I mentioned, I think, you saw that he was a guy that was getting a lot of love on Twitter there for a little bit because of the picture posted at him of OTAs with the gigantic quads. I know that was deemed Mike Davis Day. It was everybody was all over him. But like I mentioned, there's not anything that team has done proven otherwise. You've got Quadri Allison back there still. Javian Hawkins was the guy that they were talking about, but he's a very small statured guy. I think 5'9", under 200 pounds, probably not built to really kind of take a lot of a pounding as a full-time back in the NFL. So he's probably going to be a situational guy at best. So I think Mike Davis is built.
They can't go into the year with just Mike Davis pretty much at running back, right? They've got, I
think that's what they're going to do, though. Unless there's
the Bears
guys cut.
The Bears cut him.
Let's look at your team, Ryan Pace, and what they've done there over the course of the last few years. Do you really think that is a team that's made the most sound decisions in the front office?
No, they have not. No.
But point taken.
They gave Mike Davis the reins, and he did shit with it. Now again. He came in. He did an amazing job. I would have never thought he would do what he did with Carolina. But
yeah, it's a byproduct of the offense that you're put into.
It is. And unfortunately, I don't view Davis as anybody I would want on my teams. But if he's going round 5 and I got starter quality guy who I know is going to get probably 70 to 80% of the work there.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to, right?
Yeah, you're looking at a guy that's probably dialed in right now for 20 touches a week. And what's the latest you can get a running back in fantasy football in 2021 that's going to get you 20 touches a week? You're probably looking at that range right here with Mike Davis. Probably even, that's going in this same round. Myles Gaskin is another guy that's, lesser known to most of the casual drafters out there, but they're definitely guys that are going to be getting the workload because the team has just kind of avoided that position over the course of the offseason. So, I'm wooing Mike Davis here in this round just based on that because sheer volume alone. That's that you can't really turn a blind eye to volume, and that's something that really dials me in on a player, especially in that 5th, 6th round and this deep at running back because it falls off the table very quickly after this top 20, 22, 24. There you're getting in a lot of guys that you just really don't want. And speaking of, and a guy that I'll probably be booing and not having a lot of is Travis Etienne. He's coming off the board, RB23, rookie coming into Jacksonville, and we've just completely disowned James Robinson and what he did as a running back in 2020. We're expecting Travis Etienne's going to come in and he's going to get 75% of the snaps in that backfield. That will not happen. We're drafting,
but it's not going to happen right off the bat.
No, it is. Yeah. And I'm going to say for the season, for the entire season, he's not going to get that many touches. You're probably going to be looking at a 50-50 split, maybe by season's end, 55 to 60, geared more towards Etienne. But yeah, if I'm going to be paying that price for a running back at RB23 here in the 5th round, do I want a guy like I just mentioned with Mike Davis or Myles Gaskin?
I'd much rather have those guys.
Yeah, I'm really going to kind of dial in on those guys. Do I even want to go further down the board and get a guy that he's going to be splitting time, but Kareem Hunt? I might want Kareem Hunt for the PPR appeal at that point. That's how I'm looking at it.
I think that's what I think that they're looking at Etienne. They've been talking about Etienne getting wide receiver snaps there as well.
Yeah.
So, I think he's going to be that. That's what I think his appeal here is in the PPR.
Well, you've heard Urban Meyer. Let's kind of paint the picture a little bit. We've heard Urban Meyer mention that they view him as the pass catching down back, and he's probably not going to be anything more than their 3rd down back. He has mentioned that. But this is also Urban Meyer, who's a rookie coach in the NFL, who thought it was a sound decision to bring Tim Tebow in to be his now probably starting tight end. This guy's not making the best decisions.
No James Oshag Hennessy.
Yeah, we're not going there. So, he's not making the best decisions as the guy that's calling the shots down in Jacksonville. So, forgive me if I don't buy in on what he's trying to sell as far as Travis Etienne, and people probably baking in the fact that he's going to be the guy that's going to get most of the touches in this backfield. I can't do it. I refuse to do it. So for me, that's a fade in that round and where he's going right now. So yeah, that's that's the first 5 rounds. Underdog, according to the Underdog ADP, that freshly new minted ADP that's out there right now. And like I mentioned, if you got an itch, you want to do some drafts right now, go to Underdog and check them out. Throw a little bit of money in there if you can, if you're in the appropriate state and can online gamble. I know down in Georgia with Mr. Heffley there, we can't do the online gambling just yet. Still, we're in the archaic times down there with those guys. So
who knows? Who'd ever thought Tennessee would be able to and Georgia can't? Shock.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let's catch up, guys. Let's get some online betting over here in Georgia and the other states that have not caught up to the game yet. But other than that, man, I think kind of next time we come on, we'll probably start to kind of break down some of the rankings, position by position. Is what I'm thinking. So we'll start off with QB rankings. We'll jump in there. And I will have my fresh new minted quarterback rankings up and ready to go by the time we're back on. But
and then after that, I'll have my fresh new minted kicker rankings ready to
go. Yeah, that's what drives the listenership there.
It is. I'm really thinking about changing my Twitter handle to something kicker. So
yeah, the last bastion of kickers. Nick Heffley at the last bastion of kickers. I think I've coined a new phrase there.
Holding strong.
Holding strong. That was I mean, we had a very hotly debated talk about that night. You know, when you got your Scott Fish Bowl invite, we were talking about kickers and everything, and I mentioned that yes, if it's a startup, new league, I don't want kickers. If it's in our current leagues now and kickers are involved, yes, that's fine. I'm not going to throw a fit and try to get commissioners to get rid of the kickers in the leagues that we're currently doing now. But if I'm starting a new league from this point forward, I would prefer an extra flex spot and no kicker.
Yeah, we're an hour in, B. I could discuss this for 20 minutes.
Yeah, no, that'll be a podcast.
That's a discussion for another show.
Yeah, that's when we get towards the end of our rankings debates and stuff, and we talk about that. We'll talk about kickers ad nauseum.
Ad nauseum, people. Let's get ready.
Yeah. Oh God, I can't. Yeah, I want to know what round that's going to be something I'm going to be on the lookout for once these fishbowl drafts get started. The earliest that a kicker is taken in the Scott Fish Bowl. I want that.
They probably 12, 13 or so.
I guarantee you we're going to see one gung-ho guy individual that goes out there and pulls the trigger in round 8 or 9. I guarantee it.
I mean, look, as big as I am on kickers, I'm not going to go too crazy and draft some that early. That's just
we see wild things in our high-stakes league every year too. So this is a charity league with really no stakes other than bragging rights. So, of course, some guy's going to go crazy with his draft selection.
Sure. Or do like me and get kickers in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, double them up. So, but until then, that'll be the next podcast that we jump on and do. But like I mentioned, the Scott Fish Bowl Podathon, Tuesday morning, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's when you'll catch us. We'll be on the air to kind of wrap things up with the Scott Fish Bowl Podathon. So be on the lookout for us there. Mentioned as well, go to fantasycares.net, throw in a little bit of donation to the great cause that Scott Fish Bowl puts forth. But other than that, where can they find you on Twitter, Mr. Heffley?
You can find me at the Real FF Goat. And you can find Mr. Charisma, Justin Farley, nowhere on Twitter, but congratulations.
Nowhere to be found on Twitter. It's a shocker. Like I mentioned, getting into the Scott Fish Bowl without a Twitter handle. That's a shocker.
Right. That goes to show my marketing ability there.
But you can find me at Roto Superstar, and of course the show here at woo_fantasy on Twitter. And as always, check us out at rotoballer.com. All the great premium content that's out there. I mentioned it at the top of the show. 50% off on the premium pass right now. And Woo Fantasy gets you another 10% discount on that on top of it. So you'd be a fool to not jump in and do that. So check that out at rotoballer.com/radio. Check us out then. But until then, we'll be back with you guys with another episode of Woo! Legacy.